conversation with doing a round of introductions and hearing a little bit about your background, and then we'll kick off into questions. But we'd love to start with you, Lydia.
Sure, absolutely. I just want to say I've never had Sierra open for me. That is a tough act to follow. But so my name is Lydia. I'm at Essence a sales consultant, sort of specializing in retailer partnerships and helping brands reinforce the underpinnings that make those retailer partnerships successful. So I want to get into Sephora, I want to get into Starbucks, I want to get into Walmart, but also to what things do I have to have in place in order to make sure that partnership is successful? Once Walmart says, take my money, or once Starbucks says, takes my money, do I have the right fulfillment center? Do I have the right CFO? Do I have everything that I need? Do I have the right PR team? Do I have everything that I need in order to make that successful? So that's me.
Amazing. And then Sarah, would love to hear from you. Obviously, we go way back, so would love for you to share with this community everything that you help brands do and build.
So I am the co-founder of 111 Partners, which is a marketing, content and strategy group based here in New York. My partner is Lisa Gooder, who is a digital marketing and editorial dynamo. And I have been a writer for many, many years, too many years to mention. And then also I started brand work about 15 years ago, and I've worked with a whole range of brands from Bobbi Brown to Rosewood Hotels on content and marketing. And together, Lisa and I help support a range of companies from Costco, big companies like Costco, to small indie cool beauty brands like Maharindi, which is she's part of the Founder Made family.
Right, that's so exciting. John, let's hear from you. Pero, would love to get a little backdrop even on you individually, but also the Pero team.
Yeah, I'll try to be as tight as I can about me individually. I think it's probably the least interesting thing we have to discuss today. I'm the VP of Growth at Paro, oversee our sales and customer success teams. Personally, I'm a former recovering Deloitte consultant who caught the sales bug and am not ever going to turn back. Paro, the company that I'm here representing, think of us like the Uber for finance. Instead of rides, we're a marketplace of freelance bookkeepers, CPAs, CFOs, everything under the sun when it comes to accounting and finance. Our little claim to fame, we vet these individuals in exacting detail. We're going through 50 CFOs before we would ever admit one into our network. And then what to me is a lot cooler is we're matching them with businesses based on those unique characteristics that are going to make them uniquely successful. So not just a black car, what's the industry, what's the size, what's the stage, what are the goals? And in terms of brands, yes, we support the Kellogg's and the Kraft Heinz's of the world. I get a lot more personal fulfillment, and our brand, candidly, is a lot better adept at servicing the companies that those companies acquire, from early stage pre-revenue startups through that whole range of scale, middle market, and beyond.
This is great. And so it was fun. When we actually did our kickoff call pre this event, what we realized is between these three individuals that you're hearing from today, you could build an incredible business because you have back-end ops, you have sales, and you have marketing. So I'd love to take a little bit of a dive deeper and really learn about your core strengths and what really differentiates you as a partner and as a brand builder. And would love to start with you, Lydia, and then would love to hear from the rest of you as well.
Certainly. So at the risk of, I promise not to turn myself into an infomercial, but the thing that, as someone who's also recovering from something else, I think many consultants have this story, something that I didn't really think of retail as a place that I could go. I grew up sort of a good girl who knew that she should go into finance. And I discovered very quickly that I'm way too loud for it. So I went to Paris and I started consulting for a company that was working in private labeling. It was like French Fortnum and Mason. Everything was pink. It was retail. I fell in love with it. I realized retail is a place you can work. This is a wonderful industry. And fell into a buying group. I was the purchasing director for 32 categories. And what essentially this meant was managing planograms for grocery, drug, mass, a handful of independents, but understanding every horizontal and vertical of the purchasing decision, from customer to distributor purchasing to buying for a retailer, and understanding how to thread that needle for a product to make sure that it was successful, in order to make sure that if I took on this granola bar, that this granola bar would be successful not just in UNFI, but also in Publix, and that Publix would actually carry it. And that went through, again, from beverage to frozen to skincare, but also to, at the time, energy drinks and beef jerky and potato chips. And very soon, I stopped caring so much about certain brands and started caring a lot more about others. But that was a real crucible in understanding every level of the purchasing process. And this is where I think you'll find what makes me special is sort of a level of fluency in these horizontals and verticals that most consultants typically don't specialize in when they're specializing in partnerships. Most either specialize in beverage or they specialize in a particular retailer. They either specialize in ice cream or Costco, as an example. In terms of notable work that I've done that you might recognize, I think probably the one that most people might know me for, my third client of all time, who I didn't even want to reach out to, a friend of mine made me, was Venus Williams. It started out as a pretty small partnership. I was just selling her into hospitality. We had a lot of success with Ritz-Carlton, so we graduated and I got her into Dick's. So we're getting more successful now. And then we got her into Selfridges, Harrods. We had beautiful partnerships there, Carbon 38. And then we architected this partnership with Credo for the inclusive sunscreen, which has launched at quite the poignant moment and has been quite something. Some other people might recognize a little brand called Kanuka. We found out mid-launch that it was the largest launch by size and door count in beauty history. That was something that we were pretty proud to learn. That CBD launch in particular was quite something to cut my teeth on. I've learned quite a bit about CBD through that particular brand.
Gosh, I mean, you're so well-rounded. And, with that, I'd love to actually hear from you, John, too, a little bit more about the unique offering and what really differentiates you. Because, we've seen a ton on demand and outsourcing CFOs and bookkeepers, but would love to just hear about that.
It is. And that whole, on demand, gig economy, whatever you want to call it, it's proven that this is the future for so many sectors. And what we found is that it's really hard to apply that to white collar finance, accounting, and other high knowledge based skills. And at the end of the day, the quality of your talent is everything. Without that, you have nothing. If you're able to attract and retain the best people, you're not going to be a brand that anyone cares about. And the way that we've found we're able to accomplish that at scale and consistently is through a two-part process. You vet for excellence, you match for the perfect fit. So we've built our own proprietary vetting process. Again, we go through 50 CPAs before we'd ever admit one to our network. But I get so much more excited about that matchmaking component. As Lydia was mentioning, specialization. That's everything. I don't care if you're the best CFO out of 50. I care about it. Are you the best CFO in a network of 500 for that specific client, for their goals, for their idiosyncrasies? That's everything. The other value props to me are all secondary. It's fast, it's scalable, it's flexible, it's cost effective. But again, without specialization, without quality, you're never going to come back.
I love that. I mean, such a great point. And Sarah, too, I know you have a ton of specialties, and some of them really mirror really well with Lydia in terms of, beauty and CBD. So would love to hear the same from you, and even any commentary on stage that you specialize too.
We work with all stages from, as many as with some of the businesses you've brought to us, like just from when people are in the very early concept, they have a great idea and they want to get it set up with a deck and start coming up with investors to really establish brands. And like Lydia, we also work with a real range of types of companies. So it's CBD, it's fashion, it's travel, it's retail. And having that that huge, we're able to kind of pivot. And I like that we don't just specialize in one type of brand and one type of business. I think that actually it's really limiting when you go to a marketing agency that, like, let's say just specializes in travel or just specializes in beauty. Having that kind of 360 view where we know how to connect brands with their audience in a really, really powerful way is important. And the other thing that differentiates us that's really important is both of us have built brands from the inside, and we've also been on the editorial and storytelling side. So we really have that 360 view of how a brand works, and I think it gives us a real edge. We're not just speaking in marketing speak. We really know how to tell stories and make that real connection between a brand and their audience and their target audience.
And this is so great. Then looking at you, you're truly the complete toolbox. And so I want to actually go into, because it's good to know who to go to, but how do you really think about when you have a goal, like, is this person partner the right partner when it comes to goal alignment? And what are the steps that a brand should really be taking to create that alignment to make sure that can be really the right solution? And would love to hear from you, John, and we'll hear from everyone else.
Goal alignment. I feel like it's just like an invitation to cut corners. Oh, this is where we want to get to. We're on the same page. Okay, we have this. Like, no, you don't. And to me, it's so much about alignment. It's short-term, medium-term, long-term. It is vendor and client. It is individual and business. And that's the last one I feel like people consistently forget. Just because you're aligned as a vendor or as a partner in that business, well, okay, we know what we both want to achieve. Do the personalities match? Is the sum going to be more than is the whole going to be more than the sum of the parts? And so, we drill consistently, actually have built into our product goal alignment from the earliest stages of a relationship, that it needs to be explicit, it needs to be written down, and ideally it needs to be formalized in the actual work product, whether it's a contingent success or simply the work that you're attacking. I see Lydia nodding. I don't know if
you're speaking to your it's because you're thinking about this roadmap, right? You're thinking about this roadmap because this, if your end goal, for example, is to get into, I think, I think that there are probably a lot of beauty founders perhaps listening to this particular chat. If your reason for being, if something that you're deeply passionate about is getting into Ulta or Sephora, the roadmap to get to Ulta and Sephora might be a very short one, but it might be a very long one. And the roadmap to get there, there's strategic investments to get there. For example, are you doing everything in your power to get on an Allure Best of Beauty list? Do you have the right PR partner to do that? Are you manufacturing? Are you formulating a Best of Beauty formulation in order to get that kind of an award so that your PR team can actually get it for you? I mean, there's a roadmap to get there. And if you're not aligned on it from the beginning and what that yellow brick road looks like along the, I'm just nodding furiously. Just nodding furiously.
I have so much appreciation. And I think that's a good segue for you, Sarah. I mean, you've done everything from PR to ghostwriting, and you've seen brands build from the beginning, including Bobbi Brown. So would love to hear your take.
Well, I think ideally you want to match with partners that are really passionate about your business, but also really honest with you and able to tell you stuff you may not want to hear. I mean, the fact is and I know, John and Lydia, you're going to agree with this, a lot of founders, they get too close. They're almost too close to their brand or too close to their company to see it clearly. So having an outside perspective and someone who can come in and say, you know what, actually that messaging, like that's not going to resonate with who you're trying to go after, or, your website, the visuals, like it's all wrong for the image you're trying to project, whatever it is, like you need to have someone who's really honest with you. If you can hire someone who can, build you a website or come up with a marketing plan. And if they're just parroting what you're telling them and not bringing you fresh ideas and not challenging you sometimes, and having that ability to have that real connection, that positive back and forth of ideas, those are really, really important things to look for in a partner. And I think when you have that first initial call, you want someone who's going to bring to you fresh ideas that, maybe you hadn't thought of, and said, who might say, you know what, I love hearing what you want, but what do you think about this? And who's passionate and invested in your brand in that way, to think outside the box for you and with you.
It's so funny you say that, Sarah. There's a elemental concept in accounting of independence. You must be independent as an auditor from the firm whose books you're keeping, but it's something that we embrace all the way up the value chain, including just that concept of bringing an independent, unbiased perspective. Couldn't agree with you more.
That's actually an interesting point. Earlier in today's day, right? It was this confluence of actually listening to your intuition and following what you think is unique to your own brand ethos, and not hearing, not necessarily always shifting and shaping based on external influence, but yet here we're talking about being open to different perspective. So, to smooth the edges on the kind of messaging here, right? How does one know, what the right path is, and how do you vet for that? I want to dig a little bit more into that alignment, right? Because those are kind of two different messages here. I think both can hold true. So Lydia, I see you nodding, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
So where the founder magic really lies, and what just makes me fall in love with Founder Made so much is this community of founders. What lies within the founder so much is the North Star and the DNA of the brand, and that litmus test for what is aligned and what is where you're really going. You need that as a brand. Again, so many of these early stage decisions are predicated on that founder instinct, that DNA, and that North Star. Are we a D2C business? Because your headcount, your strategy, a lot of things are going to change based on if you decide we're a D2C business, or we're an Amazon business, or we really want to make Sephora work. Those are three totally different organizations. The one of the projects I did most recently was kind of interesting. On the one hand, it was kind of fun. It was an influencer, and she was basically deciding, where do I want to go? What do I want my life to look like? Do I want to launch into Walmart and have my life look like that for the next 6 years? Or do I want to launch into Sephora and my life look like that for the next 6 years? But it was basically an exercise in deciding what do I want my organization to look like for the next 6 years? And it was deciding between like 6 different companies. And only the founder can really make that decision about what they want to do. But in terms of those next steps, those next nuances, what are those next steps after you've made that decision? That's where it really helps to get some experts in the room to help you, because after that initial sort of rudder, it helps to have wind in your sails, like a strong PR team or CFO telling you what to do.
Absolutely. Actually, it's funny, you hit on, what basically architecting, backwards, right? And starting with the end goal. And I think you actually addressed a really good point around what do you even want your life to be like? And we, in our prep call, talked about even, bringing in-house versus outsourcing your team. And it touches again on some of the other points you were making around personality alignment. So I want to talk about that a bit too, because that's such an interesting one to us. We've worked with a number of consultants, and also too, right? Like if you find the incredible talent, but the cultural alignment or the personality alignment's not there, is it okay with the outsource, person, and just adding that layer, right? So how do let's actually, I'm going to toss it to you, Sarah, because I know you built such great brands. Would love to hear your perspective.
So I really think that I think outsourcing a team is actually an easy first step for many smaller brands that are ready to grow. ready to stop being a superhero and trying to do everything themselves. But it doesn't have that same intense level of commitment. You can start on a project basis, you can start on a retainer basis, and you can kind of see how it goes. And then, see if, I think a lot of times people need help, but they don't need full-time help. They may not even need part-time help. And so having a team that you can outsource is very, very valuable. And again, for the commitment phobic, and many small startups are bootstrapping it and trying to make it all work, while they're getting funding. Having an outsourced team can be a really, really smart step.
That's great. And John, too, I'd love to hear your perspective and even dive a little bit deeper around cultural alignment. I mean, having spoken to your team before, I know that you do a real deep dive on the personalities that are within an organization and making sure that's really a match.
Yeah, and just I'd be remiss without at least remarking, like Sarah, you could have been reading from our consultant handbook, right? You de-risk, you increase efficiency, like it's the tenets of outsourcing in general. But I'd love to come back, Michelle, to your point about the personal touch. And in our, we've been building this platform for over 5 years. And in the earliest iterations, it was, well, check the industry box, check the technology box, check the size and stage box. This is going to work. But it's not math. There is some chemistry. There's some alchemy in these matches. And I mean, even in the last, I'd say 18 months, we've seen a tenfold increase in matches, either mostly or predominantly focused around diversity. And that's not just gender, that's not just socioeconomic, that's not just racial, it's diversity of experience as well. And so the founders, to me, that have that open mind of understanding, I have strengths, which are my superpowers that I can do with very little effort. I have development areas that I can't develop all at once. And I want to bring in that diversity of experience and background and perspective, because it's going to push me and bring things that I simply don't have the time to develop. That's where this works the best and works the quickest.
Actually, it's so interesting that you say that. I was speaking to one of the most competent executives I know, who worked for they were named one of the top 3 growth beauty brands for this year by WWD. It was something outrageous. They grew 300% in last year. It was outrageous. And I sent him a message saying, you're amazing, whatever, what's your secret? And he said something to the tune of, I refuse to hire anybody from XYZ corporate company. It was so interesting to hear somebody that has the most corporate background ever saying, I need diversity in the room. I need people who are willing to get their hands dirty. I need people who don't think of themselves as a cog or a screw in a larger machine. I need cross-functional hustle.
And outsourcing is such an easy way to do that, and that you don't risk in your hiring and your local talent pool. To me, it's so obvious.
To that point, and Michelle, I know I've told you the story before, but when Bobby hired me, when I first worked for her, Bobby Brown, I had never written beauty before. I had never done anything in beauty before. And she said, I want to hire you because you love beauty personally. Like I've been getting like makeovers at her counter since I was 18, and I was passionate about it. I'm a little, a beauty junkie, but I didn't have that work experience. And she was like, thank God, I don't want another beauty writer. I want someone with a totally new perspective. And she does that with a lot of hiring. And I think it's really smart, and clearly it's really worked for her.
I love that, by the way. And having that belief from the leadership perspective. Lydia, did you want to add something there?
No. I was just reaffirming, like, I can confirm it's definitely worked for Bobby.
Yeah. I think it really worked out. I think, yes, it definitely worked out. And obviously, Sarah being an incredible part of that. We have 2 minutes left, which is crazy because the session flew so fast. I want to just open it up for anything actionable from your unique purview that you think that our listeners can really take into their business, and anything else that you'd like to share. And maybe let's start with you, John.
I would say be open to starting relationships early and often, and be wary of any vendor who's not able to add value free of charge.
Mm.
If you're not able to break down a problem, provide strong recommendations, whether you work with them that day or not, I would hit the brakes. Those are my, I guess, parting words of hopeful wisdom.
Love that. Love that advice. And I think actually you guys mentioned start relationships early, right? Even before, just so you start feeling the pulse of that person and what it's going to be like. And, you know, I think also that that person who's not saying like, no, that's not my job. Anyways, Lydia, yeah, I mean, I think you wanted to throw something in there, so I would love to hear.
No, I forgive me. I'm nodding furiously. I don't mean to look like I'm I'm just so
enthusiastic nod.
just so affirming. No, but idea too, the idea that every single partner is going to hide every single piece of their expertise behind a paywall or charge you hourly for whatever. I absolutely, huge red flag, run away. I think just about anybody that anyone listening could encounter through the Founder Made family. I would say if you've heard anything today from when Discovery Show started this morning until now, reach out. There's literally no anybody who's been interested, I think, in anybody and on this panel, I know anyone here would be willing to help walk you through an issue, point you in the right direction, make sure that you're on the right path. I mean, I don't mean to be trite, but I think that's part of why I've loved being a part of the Founder Made family since Jump. It's not to be trite.
And Sarah?
I would say my best piece of advice is, you know, don't try and be a superhero. So many founders and entrepreneurs are trying to do every single little bit of their business by themselves. And I think that having a real, you know, taking on people to help you out and to take some of the weight off and, you know, help you expand your business is huge. And it doesn't save you money to try and do everything yourself. I think so many people think, oh, I'm saving money by being my own PR person and my own marketing person and, you know, trying to get into stores myself. But no one person can do it all. And you should be focused on what you do best and the, you know, the creative or business side or, you know, whatever it is that is your strength behind your brand. That's what you should be focused on, and allow people to help you to come in and be invested with you and passionate about your brand and be your partners.
Oh, I have so much appreciation for that. And also too, sometimes the mistakes that you make on your own can be expensive ones to undo when you don't have a professional around. So anyways, all this to say to, the point that was made earlier, these three individuals here are so accessible. They're so warm and kind, and, you know, developing that early relationship truly is everything. And it allows you to have advocates or kind of like, guardian angel on your shoulder as you navigate. And maybe the starting point of the working relationship maybe is further down the line, but having these people in your court is going to make all the difference. So please get in touch. Sarah, Lydia, John, thank you so much for today's session.